sheets of ice covering our hearts. Sheets of ice covering our hearts. But I think we see in this extraordinary drama that Pat has described to us the thaw, the flow, the upstart spring. And we're, I think, going to see much more opening because of the drama and the international conversation generated by the hard work of Kelly Pink and the Gaza Freedom March. So it's a privilege to be here with you tonight. I went to Gaza during the Operation Cast-led bombing. I entered into Gaza during the last 4 days of that hideous bombing. A bomb exploded once every 11 minutes at night, from 11 at night till 1 in the morning, and then there would be a 3-hour lull, and then you could time it. Once every 11 minutes, another bomb would explode. Some very fine university students helped me go to Gaza City after the bombing stopped. And I went to visit in the Shifa hospital. And just this last weekend, with the Jewish Voice for Peace and others who so regularly vigil at Water Tower, I stood next to a Royal Jordanian pilot. His name was Wissam. And he read out the names, the long list of names of people among those 1,409 who were killed during Operation Cast-led. And as he was reading, I realized we were going to come to the names of the children in the family of Saba Abu Hanani. And I had sat at her bedside in the Shifa hospital, but I'd never learned the names of her children. And so Wissam read them out. Shahid, Ziad, Hamza, Abdurrahman. Abdurrahman, her first 14-year-old boy. Hamza, her 10-year-old boy. Ziad, her 8-year-old boy. Shahid, her 2-month-old daughter. And she was awash in oceanic grief. Her arm looked like a big beehive. It was wrapped in so many bandages because she had been burned by white phosphorus. But it was as though that was a far secondary pain as she began to unfold the story of what had happened. And she still didn't even know the full story of what had happened. You see, white phosphorus tank-fired missiles had been fired by invading Israeli forces right into her home. Her husband had grabbed the children and run to one room for shelter, but they picked the wrong room and they were all burned to death, her husband, her baby daughter, and her 3 children. After I left her bedside, we went up to Al-Atafra, and we went to her home, and we saw the charred room where her family members had been burned to death. And the very next door room was completely ransacked. The cabinets were emptied out, the tables were overturned, things were ripped off the walls. And you see, because her home was just a little bit higher than other homes in the area, the invading soldiers had occupied her home. But first they had to ransack it to make sure that her family, her baby daughter, her young sons, didn't have weapons. And then written on the wall, in perfect Arabic script, before they left, the soldiers wrote, Min Jaysh Israeli, from the Israeli military, Nahnu Nasifa, we're sorry. But we all know that right next to that script should have been another line that said, from the American people, we're sorry. Because we provided the white phosphorus, those 125 millimeter shells that explode, and they send 116 wedges of white phosphorus chemicals as far as 125 meters from the blast spot. We sent the white phosphorus, and the bunker busters, and the joint defense ammunition kits, and the F-16 planes, and the Apache helicopters, and the horrible long litany of weapons that have relentlessly been sent, making us collaborators, making us complicit. And we have not been able to lift that siege. You know, before the siege was imposed 3 years ago, in just 1 month, 7,450 trucks, just counting the trucks of construction materials, would go into Gaza every month. And now, over this entire year of siege following the brutal and the horrendous bombing, with so many houses destroyed, so many factories destroyed, so many farms unable to function, 41 trucks total of construction materials have gone into Gaza. In July of 2008, the Israeli military submitted their calculation of what weapons they would need in order to carry on Operation Cast Lead. Then, in September, the United States Congress approved sending the requested small guided bomb units, 1,000 of those. In November, they were delivered. All of this happened before there was any suggestion that the ceasefire had been broken. The plans were laid. The preparations were made. But even after the assault had begun on December 27th, 4 days later, December 31st, the United States Navy hired ships to deliver 3,000 tons more weaponry. Sama Abu Halimi's scarred and burned arms will always ache longingly for loved ones who will never return. Her loved ones cannot be restored. But her yearning, her longing can be mirrored. It can be felt by all of us here. We can feel the thaw, the flow, the upstart spring, and let rivers of our longing for justice, our demand for justice, flow forth from us. Let us embrace everyone over in the Gaza Freedom Marches, our representatives, that we will march, we will speak, we will raise our voices, we will not be collaborators, we will not be complicit. We will see peace. We will not have rivers of ice cover our hearts. Thank you.